If you have pain in your hip, maybe due to hip arthritis or for any other reason, these exercises may help you. To help manage the pain in your hip, the exercises we do are going to need to try and improve mobility and also try and build strength in the muscles around your hip. Here are 5 exercises that you can do along with different variations of each of those exercises so that you really can find a starting point for you depending on the amount of pain you're currently in and what you're able to do. Now make sure you don't miss exercises 4 and 5 as they are the 2 that tend to get missed the most. So let's start with those mobility exercises. So initially we're going to sit on the floor or ideally on a mat for comfort. Have the feet not quite hip width, a little bit wider, maybe shoulder width apart, with the knees bent to about 90 degrees. And then with my arms behind me, just supported on there, I'm then going to just rock my knees over to one side. So ideally that knee is lining up with the base of the heel. And the same as I come the other way. So rather than it being up here, I sort of slide it back so it's in position. And once I know my feet are in position, just rocking the knees from side to side, trying to get both knees down to the floor if you can. Recognise that's not possible for everyone. It might be you only get to about here. But you just work into some resistance. Keep it comfortable, but try and just get a little bit extra each time. And eventually over time, hopefully we'll find you'll get closer to getting both knees to the floor. If you find you can get your knees to the floor quite easily and you want more of a challenge, we can bring our chest over this front knee and try and sink into that. And you might hold that for about 5 to 10 seconds, rock the knees back over, and then come back over in this direction. Equally, if you still feel that's quite easy, what you can do for an added challenge is now have the hands above, and then we're just going to rock the knees from side to side. So that sitting up action means I'm having to work a bit more in the hips, and I'm in a little bit more hip flexion than when I was sitting back into it, so it makes it a more difficult exercise. Then lastly, one added bonus exercise you could do is if you've managed to do this one, you can add a little hip list where you come up onto both knees, slowly down, rotate over to the other side, back up onto both knees, and then slowly down again. And you might do 10 of those in each direction. So now we come on to the muscle strengthening exercises. So it's important to know for these exercises, if they feel too easy and you could do a lot more than say 15 repetitions and you could just keep going because it feels so easy, then you're not actually going to building any muscle strength. So we need to find a way of making the exercise harder, which normally involves holding some weight or doing it against a thicker resistance band when we come onto those exercises. The first strengthening exercise that I want to introduce is some form of a hip hinge. So that movement is going to come mainly for the hip, is flexing and then extending back out again. So the easiest option to begin with this is the bridge. For this one, you're going to lay on your back. And then we're going to have, at the easiest level, your arms are going to be resting by your side. And then we're going to push through your heels to lift the bum up into the air. And then slowly lower back down to the floor. To make it a little bit harder, we can bring the hands across your chest. And now you can't use your hands to push into the floor. You have to work through your legs a little bit more. It's nice, slowly controlled up. Nice, slowly down. If you find your hamstrings start to feel like they're cramping, if you just bring your heels a little bit closer towards your bum, and you're using your glute muscles a bit more and a bit less on the hamstrings, it tends to be a bit more comfortable for those hamstrings. To make it even harder again, we could just go to one-legged bridge. So we're just going to straighten one leg out and then just push down through the remaining heel to lift up and then slowly back down again. And then we can repeat that on the other side. The next variation of the hip hinge exercise is a Romanian deadlift, or the RDL as it's called. So with this one, I'm going to use dumbbells, going to hold them end to end, and then I'm just going to bend at my hips, lowering the weights down towards my knees, keeping my back straight, and I'm going to push the hips forwards to stand back up again. Now my knees stay out the way, so my shins are staying pretty vertical to allow the weight to come past them, and then I come back up again. So the knees don't drift forwards. That would be me coming into more of a squat, so I'm keeping those knees back. And this means the movement is coming from those hips hinging, hence the name hip hinge exercise. Now, if you don't feel comfortable doing those with a weight yet, you could use a resistance band. So what we can do is hold the resistance band like this. Both feet go over both strands of the band, leaving a bit of excess on each side. And then I'm going to just do exactly the same motion. Bum goes back, hands down towards knees. And then I thrust those hips to come back up again. So nice, slow and controlled. A little bit less resistance with the band, but if it means you get confident with the movement first, we can add the weight back in later. The next exercise is some variation of the squat. So for this, I like to start with simply a sit to stand. So we're sitting on a chair, very slowly and controlled, standing up until we get full extension at the hips. And then very slowly, we're sitting back down again. And we can either gently sit down, or the next time, you can do it where you just simply tap and come straight back up again without actually fully committing to sitting down. So again, about this kind of pace. We're not relying on momentum at any point, and it's just nice, slow and controlled. Now, if you found the depth of the squat too difficult, or it forced you into too much of a bend that was painful for your hip, then having a slightly raised surface can help. So sometimes the arm of a sofa, a bed might be slightly higher, but something slightly higher means you're going through less range of motion during that sit to stand or during that squat, and it tends to be a lot more comfortable. Now, remember what I said. If this is too easy, you could do lots and lots of these in a row without it really challenging the muscles. Then we need to find a way of making it harder, which is going to be holding some weights. This could be 2 dumbbells like this, could be a kettlebell. Doesn't matter what it is. It could even be a rucksack with bottles of water on your back. But we're going to then just start to slowly stand up, slowly sit down again. And we want to find a weight that is challenging for our muscles, and that's when we're really building that strength. And if you can't find a surface at a suitable height, you can just do this freestanding without actually sitting down. So you're just going to a squat to a depth that you feel comfortable. So you might feel comfortable going a little bit deeper, in which case that's absolutely fine. But find the level that's right for you. The 2 strengthening exercises so far have worked in that one plane of motion, which is kind of that forwards motion and backwards motion. We also have lateral motion of the hip. So we want to make sure we work the muscles to control that. So one of the ones we can do is laying on our side. Tend to just support myself on my upper arm or just on my hand there. I tend to bend the bottom knee for a little bit of support and balance. And then reaching that top leg away from me, keeping my foot parallel with the floor, I'm just going to lift that up slowly to the ceiling, come back down, tap the floor, and then back up. Again, what I'm not doing is having my foot too far forwards and kind of kicking out forwards as I come. I'm also not rotating my hip out to lift up and pointing the toe towards the ceiling. The toe is pointing in a horizontal plane, parallel with the floor. As I look back, I can just about see my foot, but I definitely can't see my shin. So I'm in that nice straight line. And as I come up, I feel that working the muscles in the side of my hip. We can also strengthen in the lateral plane of motion in standing using one of these mini bands or small resistance bands, which is just this small loop. So we can place that loop around the widest point of the foot. And then what we're going to do is take small steps out to the side and just let the other leg come to meet it. Nice, slow and controlled. So what I'm not doing is sliding my foot through or snapping it through. I'm keeping that control all the way through. So if you find the band you're using is a little bit tough, you could then use a slightly thinner band. They tend to come in color codes, saying if they're light, medium or heavy. Equally, if it finds it a bit too easy and you're not really feeling a challenge on the side of the muscles, then you might want to go for a thicker band. You can also do this using one of the longer loops with these resistance bands. And you just step one foot in over one strand. I tend to put a little twist in, and then again, nice small steps across in one direction and then back in the other direction. These are similar to the lateral motions, but we've also got rotation of the hip in and out. So I want to start to strengthen some of the muscles that rotate the hip. So this next exercise is going to be called the clam. Again, I can support my head on my arm or up on my hand. I'm going to try and keep my feet together, and my feet are in line with my back here, so they're not too far forwards or kind of too far back. My hips are about 45 and my knees are about 90. And then what I'm going to do is think about keeping my feet together. I'm just going to lift that top knee as high as I can get it and slowly back down. And what I'm not doing is, a lot of people feel they need to get more movement at this point, so they roll their hip back to feel like they've got that motion. So what I want to do is keep my hips on top of each other. So I tend to put a hand here to stop that happening. I just slowly come up, slowly back down. And I tend to feel this on the muscle of my side of my bum. Now, if you want a bit more of a challenge again, you can use that same blue band as in for the lateral side steps and put that around your knees. And the same movement, I'm just going to lift that up against the resistance of the band and slowly back down. And straight away I can feel that working a lot harder here. So same motion, same kind of speed, and slowly back down. Now that you know which exercises to do, you're going to want to know how many of them you should be doing. So I recommend you watch this video next.